Get ready to go. So we're going to call to order the public safety meeting of this morning. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Alderman Boyd.
He's excused. He would like to be here, but his dad died, and I would hope that we all keep his family in our prayers.
Okay. Alderman Ornowitz. Present. Alderwoman Hubbard.
Present.
Alderwoman Howard.
Present.
Alderman Muhammad.
Here.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Here.
Chairman Vaccaro.
Present, and Alderwoman Pam told me she would be a little bit late.
So noted.
President Reed.
He's right down there.
There he is. Okay. Now, so first off, we got to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Can we have a
September
moment to
19th.
review those minutes, please?
Sure. And as we're looking at the meetings, so for today's meeting, because Jeffrey, who's the normal vice chairman, for today, John Muhammad will be acting as vice chairman of the committee, so that if any reason I have to step out, he would be taken over, and if he has to step out, you know, it keeps the meeting fluid. And we're still waiting on the minutes.
Mr. Chairman, I move to approve the minutes from September 19, 2019.
Second.
Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd. Alderman Ornowitz. Aye. Alderwoman Hubbard. Aye. Alderwoman Howard.
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad. Aye. Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Chairman Vaccaro.
Aye.
President Reed.
Aye. So, I think we'll go ahead and start with the President. If you want to go ahead and present your bill, that'd be
Yes.
wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, and also everybody that's in attendance today. Board Bill 105 is a board bill that would appropriate funds to be able to fund the program called Cure Violence across a 3-year period. I don't have to, tell all of you, I'm sure you have recognized all the crime that's hit our city, particularly this year, with a lot of the young people that have been shot and killed in our city. Currently, we were at 149 murders in our city, plus another 4, that's including the 4 from just last night. There are cities across America that don't see 4 murders in 2 to 3 weeks opposed to one night. But that's what we're seeing now. And when you take a look at the number of shootings, we're at over 1,700 shootings just this year alone. So it's clear that we need a change in course and direction. It would be different if this was just a rarity that we don't normally see upwards of 200 people murdered in our city on an annual basis. But year after year after year after year, this is what we've seen. St. Louis City remains in one of the top 10 most dangerous cities in America, and we can do something different. We have to break with the current entrenched system and bring something new in place that can address these things at their core, that can help us get in front of the public safety issues that have plagued us as a city, and have a new day in the city of St. Louis. And I think that program is Cure Violence. Cure Violence has been proven to work in cities all across America. And if there's one thing that we know about public safety and crime that we did not know before, is that it is not an easy fix. It's not something that's easy. It's not something that any one of us could sit down with a pen and piece of paper and write things down and put them in place and hope that they will work. Cure Violence has been measured and studied by professors and independent testing agencies, and it's been implemented in cities all across the country with very similar results no matter where they put it. And that's 40% to a 60+% drop in the violent crime rate and murders in their city. If the city of St. Louis would have a 50% drop in our murder rate, that would transform us as a city. And there is some real cost to all the murders that we're seeing. That's why we see corporations leave. That's why we see people choosing not to live in our city and choosing to move out of our city, because they want to have a safe place to raise a family. They want to have a safe place to live. And when you look at how brazen some of the murders have been this year, where they meet a wife and a husband and a 10-year-old child at the front door of their house, and they walk them into their house and they shoot them and kill them. That's something that you don't see all the time. When a 7-year-old kid playing in the backyard shot and killed, right? This is what's happening in our city. So this is an urgent matter that we need to address. This is something that we need to bring in a program that has been proven to work, that we can implement every single component of that program to transform our city. So that's why we're here today, and that's what Board Bill 105 represents to me. I have a number of speakers that I'd like to bring up that'll talk about the program and just give some background information so everybody's on the same page as to what we're looking at today and why I believe that it's important that we address it in this manner. The Board of Aldermen, we have an opportunity to lead the transformation of our city as it relates to public safety, and I know there are probably members of this board that have had it visit their doorstep or their family members directly. You know, not too long ago, my son getting out of the car in front of my house, walking in the house, 2 guys approached him and chased him with a pistol. That has never happened in front of my house, but it's happening every place in our city. So it's clear that we need some change. There are some amendments that I'm going to bring a little bit later to the board bill. Currently, we call out for $8 million, and $8 million is what we feel like we need across a 3-year span of time, right? That's not in 1 year. That's spread out across 3 years. To help with startup costs, any unforeseen things that may come up across the 3 years, plus the budget amount to fund the program as outlined and also as delivered to us by the Public Safety Director. So the number that I will introduce a little bit later is $5 million. I've been working with the Budget Director to identify $5 million that are in this current budget that we can transfer to an account in the Health Department to assure that this program is funded. And then across 3 years, we have an opportunity to put another $1 million in, right? We have $2 million that's in place right now. That brings us to that. So the 2 plus the 5, that's 7. And then we'll come up with another $1 million across the next 3 years. And I think Mary's passing that out now.
So I would say it's your show. So just as you have people that you brought that you want to speak,
Yes.
please introduce them and bring them up. I do think under our rules, they have to sign up when they come up. And there's a sheet up there. You just have them sign in when they come up. Okay. And that's just so we can keep accurate minutes of the meeting.
All right. Is this the one?
Yeah, it's not pro and con. It's just they
Yeah,
just switching their
I'll
names for
keep
the
it right here.
minutes.
So our first speaker is Marcus McAllister. He's the international trainer for pure violence. He has some history here in the city of St. Louis that he'll talk to you about. But he's trained cities, not just domestically, but domestically and also internationally to meet the challenges of public safety in their city and to properly roll out pure violence. Marcus?
Thank you, President Reed. So once again, thank you for having me to be able to speak today about cure violence, something I'm very passionate about, something that I've been working on now for 16 years. So I'm not going to be very long, but I want to get to some points. Very passionate, and I'm very passionate about this program being in St. Louis. Out of all the cities I work in, we have 26 cities we're working in, 70 replications throughout the United States, and 12 replications out the country that is doing the work, as President Reed mentioned. And I've had the opportunity to work in all these different places. But one thing about St. Louis is that St. Louis is like home to me. My brother lives right here in St. Louis, many uncles, many aunties, family across the water. So this area is an area that I used to live at myself. You know, as I've been saying, doing this work transformed my life. And that's part of the work that I like about Cure Violence, because although it is proven to stop violence, with the people that you hire, it transforms their life as well in a neighborhood. I think there's a few points that I want to point out. As I've been looking at the news here, and I'm seeing that they're saying, you know, 8 million cure violence. I think it's clear that the 8 million is for the city of St. Louis doing the cure violence model. Sometimes wording it can throw people off. It's not like they're writing a check to cure violence for $8 million. So I just want to put that on the table right now. The money is for St. Louis, it's for St. Louis community and people to do the work on the ground that can do the work. I've also noticed in the news that we're saying that this is something that we don't know for sure, and it's a gamble. The thing I like to say to that is that we don't know for sure about a lot of things. But one thing we can at least say about Cure Violence, we have a boatload of evidence to back it up. At least we can back it up with evidence of multiple cities. And with all due respect to St. Louis, there's nothing new underneath the sun in the neighborhoods. I come from the neighborhoods, so I'm not speaking from somebody that's far away. I understand the streets. I understand the communities that we're trying to do this program in. You have to use people from the neighborhood to stop the violence. They're the ones that can get it done. Those are the ones that have been exposed to it. My condolences to anyone in the room that has lost somebody. To say that $8 million is a lot of money and it can save lives is ridiculous to me. And we're not saying $8 million for 1 year like President Reed has said. We're breaking this over a period of time. So you're talking about possibly a couple million, 2.5 each year to fund maybe 4 sites that is going to have at least maybe 50 employees. So we're talking about 50 employees over a 3-year span that come from the neighborhoods that we want to do the program at. And I don't see how that in any shape or form is not a worthy investment. I'm saying this, that we know, and you can put me on the record for this. If this investment is put into St. Louis and we're able to train and get the right people from the neighborhood, the right people, you will see a reduction in your shootings and homicides. I can stand here boldly and say that because I've been all over. I've worked in every city. I've worked in every neighborhood. I've been in places where they didn't think it could work, and then we did it, and all of a sudden they started to see reductions. We just launched in Jacksonville, Florida. You can Google Jacksonville, Florida right now. Find out what their mayor is saying about Cure Violence just right now after a 6-month span. Folks don't have to, I look at it like this. These different cities are not going to invest in something multiple years for it not to be working. There's no way that they're going to do that. They're not going to put themselves out there and just say it works, but yet keep putting money over and over and over again. New York put $30 million into Cure Violence and haven't looked back. They're one of the safest cities in the country. Camden, New Jersey is a rough neighborhood, very rough. I've been to Camden. Camden is one of the roughest places I've ever been. They haven't been defunded for the last 8 years, and they've seen success. Milwaukee, Wisconsin just recently implemented this model. And I'm not here to brag. I just want to put stats. What baffles me is that we have evaluations, we have cities that do it, multiple, and unless someone has a for sure way or something else that they could back up with stats, I don't see how this is not something that you wouldn't consider. We've considered, and I don't knock law enforcement and all the other entities. We've been doing those forever. We've been doing, they're not going anywhere. But when it's something that goes in the community that's going to give jobs to individuals and maybe that's the issue. Maybe people don't like that Cure Violence hires people from the neighborhood who may have a background. I have a background, did 10 years incarceration. Here I am today speaking in front of board members, aldermen in the city of St. Louis. I never would have thought I'd be doing this. I've been doing this 16 years. It's put me in front of presidents. It's put me in countries like South Africa. I've worked in Jerusalem. I've worked in Israel. I've worked all over the world. And the thing that I'm saying, I'm saying this, there's not a program in the country that has better training than we have. I'm one of the best trainers in the world, bar none. And it's not about the PowerPoint. See, we're going to do trainings and PowerPoints. It's not about the PowerPoint. It's about influence. Anybody can read off a PowerPoint and read about something, but can you get the people that you're training to buy in? I've been in places like Baltimore, where we first went to Baltimore, and we're training a group of people, and guess what? One of the people we were training was a gentleman by the name of Avon Barksdale, rest in peace. They made The Wire after this gentleman, you know, and he was one of the people in the room, and I was humbled, like, here it is, I'm about to train Avon Barksdale to do this work. But afterwards, he came to me and he said, I really appreciate what you guys are doing, and Baltimore hasn't looked back. Today, Baltimore has expanded to 10 sites. They started out with a few sites, and my colleague is here who actually ran the program through the health department in Baltimore. This thing works, hands down. There's not even no question about does it work. It's not a question. There's no amount of money that we could put on saving a life. We spend money on so many different things, but when it comes to putting it into a community type thing, we act like that, oh no, we can't put that much money into a neighborhood. That's ridiculous. I know that if you invest this money into this approach, it will work. Hands down, it will work. You let me get the right people. I see organizations in the room right now that I would love to work with. I see my brothers from the Sankofa Foundation and other individuals who lost loved ones and stuff. These individuals need to be on the streets. They need to be doing Cure Violence. And it's not about us. It's about looking at violence from a health perspective and stop looking at it from a criminal justice perspective. That's all we ever do. We look at criminal justice, bring in the state police, get more overtime, pay more police, etc. That is not what we need.
I would ask, I know everybody's excited, but the problem is, I would ask that we don't react to the speakers, please, because it makes the meeting go longer, and maybe there's somebody for or against the speaker. We don't want to have reaction in either direction. We're listening to the speaker. Well, I'm telling you, do your best, okay? Just do your best. You wouldn't want people either way. Go on.
I'm not going to be that much longer because I think the main thing I just wanted to say that this is evidence-based. It'd be one thing if we came here and we said, hey, we think this can work. Put some money into it. No, we know it can work. It's been going on now for 18 plus years in multiple cities. And as I've been saying to different aldermen who I spoke with yesterday, look, I invite you to go visit another city. Go talk to their folks. Go talk to their mayors. Go talk to their councilmen. Go talk to their people in the neighborhood. If you want more than just me saying it, I will challenge anyone. I'll set you up to meet any city that we're working in. We're in New Orleans. We're in Camden. We're in Philadelphia. We're in the roughest cities in the country. But you know what? Over the years, we always said we would love to work in St. Louis. Because unfortunately, St. Louis, along with places like Flint and Detroit, have always been in per capita one of the most violent countries in the world. They really have. In the United States, I mean, they stay at the top of the list. That is not no secret to the people that's in this work across the country. So I've been posting stuff about St. Louis possibly doing this work, posting some of the things that the president put out there, and all I get response is yes, yes. And not from people that are from St. Louis. I'm talking about people throughout the country are saying about time. They say this is great. They're excited to see the possibility of St. Louis to take on this initiative. We know it can work. I'm passionate about it. As you can see, I don't take this work for granted. I know what it can do, and I'm tired of seeing, my cousin got shot last year in St. Louis, the year before last, and I was afraid she was going to lose her life. Two of my cousins got shot in the car up off of Kings Highway. And, you know, that right there just said to myself, like, man, you know, that they could have been gone. You know, I've lost loved ones, and I lost friends in this city. And I'm just really anxious. I know if we're able to do this objective here in St. Louis, I've already been told that it's a priority of mine. When I leave you all today, I go to Pittsburgh next week. We're about to do a program in Pennsylvania. When I leave Pittsburgh, I go to Jacksonville, Florida, and that's great. And I'm not even trying to say, oh, Mark is traveling around, but if St. Louis decides to do this, this will be my priority. It's too close to Chicago where we're headquartered at, and it means too much to me, and I just really want to see this program get off the ground in St. Louis, and I really don't have too much more to say other than I hope it comes to pass.
Okay, stay there 1 minute. Again, I know you're excited, but I would just ask again that you please keep it, because we can't, it would just get the meeting out of control. Does anyone have any questions from this, of the speaker?
Can I bring in the second half of the Cure Violence
Sure,
folks? Right?
that's fine.
That
And then
she's
we'll
going
bring
to
them up
talk about
together.
how the program works in a little bit.
That's fine.
So we have Lori Toscano, the Executive Director of U.S. Programs for Cure Violence.
Sure. So I'll keep it short as well, especially to honor your wishes. I think, when you think about this work, it's really about changing the lens that we view violence through, right? As Marcus said, historically, this has been only a criminal justice response. Cure Violence and other health-based programs like hospital-based violence intervention programs are looking at violence as a health issue and are using the methodology that the World Health Organization uses to tackle diseases such as cholera and tuberculosis and AIDS. But really, when it gets down to it, it's about interrupting and detecting potentially violent conflicts, it's about treating those at highest risk, and it's about changing group and community norms. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that we're working in communities that have been mistreated historically by systems. This is what changes that, right? I'm lucky to be an ally in this work, but can I go out and identify a conflict between Group A and Group B and settle it peacefully? I can't do that. What I can do, and what Cure Violence does, is we provide the training and technical assistance based on 20 years of experience. And as Marcus said, I ran Baltimore's Cure Violence replication for 7 years. Learn from my mistakes. I made a ton of mistakes, but what we do in evidence-based programming is we use that information to fix these pieces. We use it to get better. We use the data to drive the work. I think the difference is that there are some amazing organizations that are doing this work right now in your city. What takes it to the next level, in my personal opinion, is being data-driven, being highly trained, highly professionalized, and having the tools to be able to do this and do it well. That's how you see the results. Thank you.
And thank you.
Want me to continue?
No, just go ahead.
We also have Dr. Randy from BJC. He's an ER trauma surgeon.
Thank you. Thanks. My name's Dr. Randy Jotty. I'm an emergency physician down at Barnes. And I just want to share with you two perspectives on the proposed program. One is from the patients I've learned from, and the other is my colleagues. In the midst of iPhones and everything else, we still use pagers down there. And it's that beep up in trauma critical care is the kind that's it's like sending out 3 cups of espresso through your system. Because usually it's from patient rule out stroke coming into trauma critical care, 5 left, or fractured arm. Occasionally you get a page from triage, drive up shooting in triage, level 1 trauma, sorry, all exclamation marks. The reason it's sorry is that's a big deal when that happens. So level 1 trauma means that they've been shot somewhere usually in t-shirt or boxer area. Very high life threat, likely to die from their injuries. Usually we like to get a lot prepared because there may be 15 or 20 people in that room in the back. You're going to get the airway ready, you have radiology, you have several emergency physicians, you have trauma surgeons, you have security, you have the chaplain, you have social work. Now, this means that they're going to be triage is rolling this person back in about 30 seconds, and you don't have time to prepare. So it can be kind of chaotic. My role when these patients present is I'm the emergency physician, so my assigned role, everyone has an assigned role, my role is the airway. So this patient may be rolling back on a wheelchair, their head back, just, parting the waters, making room for them. People are jumping out of the way because they know what's up. And a lot of times they'll throw this person on the stretcher, almost someone on each arm and leg to get them up there. My role is the airway to see if they're speaking and talking. So I'm actually communicating with them when their clothes are being cut off, everything else is going on. And so I'm the father of 2 sons, 20, 22. I'm certainly familiar with, and most of us have been at that age where you have a sense of indifference to life, apathy perhaps, as well as invincibility. And I think there's the assumption that most of the patients who are victims of violence like this have that. But when I speak to these patients, it's clear that that shade has dropped. They are so scared, all they want to do is survive. They are totally with us in terms of whatever I can do to help. And I think it's a brief opportunity to really look into what's going on in their heart, their mind, their soul as to what they want. And we often do save them. I mean, sometimes we don't, as you know, last night. But that window of opportunity is brief. And unless if there's a program or people to step in, like the Cure Violence program, to keep that open and to help them and intervene, once a couple days down the road and they're getting ready to go out of the hospital and they've survived, the cycle will continue. And I truly believe that having a program like this where you can maintain that hope and that belief that something else is possible, it can be very impactful. The second comment I have is regarding this program is a perspective from the House of Medicine, my fellow physician. So I'm the president-elect for the Barnes Hospital Association, which represents about 1,700 physicians. I've been there a long time. When we approach a problem like this, our collective approach is to apply everything possible. So I think the Cure Violence program is certainly the right approach, but there are also probably other approaches simultaneously apply. So I worked last night. We had a young woman coming in who had a very strange pneumonia. We couldn't figure it out. She had an unusual chest x-ray. We will apply maybe 3 or 4 different kinds of antibiotics that cover everything that we think is possible. She also vapes, so we're trying to think what could be related to that. We don't leave any opportunity for failure there that anybody can identify. And I think you need to have that collective approach. You need to have this on the table as part of that approach to say, let's apply these resources in the community, and there's likely other resources that you have to be part of it that you already have in place, but all it has to be pulled together. So I will, myself as an emergency physician, with my colleagues at Barnes, whatever we can do to help you in our joint effort to address this epidemic of violence are available. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I know you said no applause and everything, but Dr. Randy and the other BJC surgeons are out there saving lives every night. Can we just give them a round of applause? Thank you. And I have some other speakers, but I'd like to have just Moms Demand Action come up and make their statement, and then you can open up for questions, and then I'll bring my other 3 speakers up after that.
That's fine.
Because that'll be more
And then-
program related if you want to do it that way.
That's fine, no. And then,
Yeah.
as they come up, obviously they're just going to sign the sheet for the minutes.
Yeah,
It's your thing, so
okay.
bring who you want.
All right, thank you. And one of the other things that's important about that engagement, I want to make sure everybody doesn't miss the piece that the doctor talked about, was that engagement that happens at the emergency room. So anytime there's a major shooting or whatever that happens, right, and somebody's in the emergency room, the family members and other people gather right there at the hospital. Also what happens is that we will have someone deployed to that same group, right? So that they begin to engage with the person that have been shot, right? And hopefully they survive, but they have an opportunity to engage with them and turn them around, but also speak to the family members and work with everybody else there that's involved to ensure that we're not going to have some retaliatory action that happens in the wake of that tragic event. So that's another piece that happens simultaneously, and that's what he was talking about having all of these components in place and not leave anything on the table. Kathy Gilbert from Moms Demand Action.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm a volunteer with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. We're a grassroots, nonpartisan organization founded the day after the Sandy Hook tragedy, 7 years ago this December. Moms Demand Action is affiliated with Everytown for Gun Safety. Since 2012, Moms Demand Action has grown to 6 million supporters with chapters in every state. Here in Missouri, we have more than 12,000 supporters, with more than 2,300 of those in the St. Louis area. Moms Demand Action is committed to reducing gun violence in America through advocacy for common sense gun laws, supporting candidates who will enact such laws, and education about gun violence and what we can do about it. Our work is evidence-based, drawing on the research by Everytown for Gun Safety. One focus of that research is city gun violence. Every year, the United States has nearly 13,000 firearm homicides. Those gun homicides and assaults are concentrated in cities. 31% of gun murders occurred in the 50 cities with the highest murder rates, though only 6% of Americans live in those cities. As we know, St. Louis is one of those cities. Individuals in these cities are 5 times more likely to be murdered with a gun than Americans overall. For every gun homicide, there are approximately 6 non-fatal gun assaults. Gun homicides and assaults are further concentrated in specific neighborhoods in cities. Think Hayden's Rectangle. St. Louis is specifically referenced in Everytown's research to illustrate this concentration of violence. Based on data from the Metropolitan Police Department from 2013 to 2017, 28 of the city's 88 neighborhoods had either 0 or 1 murder in the last 5 years. But residents of other neighborhoods do not enjoy this safety. 41% of murders and 35% of all gun assaults occurred in just 9 neighborhoods. As murder has increased in St. Louis in recent years, this disparity has grown. Between 2012 and 2017, murders rose 82% in these neighborhoods, almost double the citywide increase of 48%. There are a wide variety of proven solutions to reducing this violence and increasing safety in these communities. Everytown and Moms Demand Action support community-based intervention programs like Cure Violence that provide comprehensive support to the individuals who are at greatest risk of gunshot victimization, those in the neighborhoods most impacted by gun violence. Moms Demand Action is encouraged that St. Louis is adopting this program. The Cure Violence model has been thoroughly evaluated by independent researchers who have found that the program reduces shootings and homicides. In Philadelphia, for example, the program resulted in 2.4 fewer shootings per month for every 10,000 residents in the areas served by the program. The Cure Violence program in the South Bronx was associated with a 37% decline in gun injuries and a 63% decline in shooting victimizations, while a similar neighborhood without the program did not experience the same rate of reduction. Moms Demand Action has strongly supported the city's efforts to bring Cure Violence to St. Louis, and we support Board Bill 105, which would allocate additional resources to the purpose of fully funding Cure Violence in the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
I just spoke to the chair, so I think I'm going to bring up the rest of my speakers. Ms. Robbie, if you would like to approach.
Good morning. My name is Robbie. I know this program is very important for the city of St. Louis. I have lost 5 nephews. 1 in 2001. 4 just passed in May. They all first cousins. I know this program is very important for the city of St. Louis. So I'm asking you, please, let's pass this. City of Violence. We have babies are dying. Please, St. Louis, time need to change. Thank you. Let's pass this, please. Thank you.
Ronnie Robinson.
It's an honor to be part of this, that we can all see a change for these kids. Most of all, if you ain't been effective yet. I'm a father, been infected. This was my baby boy in the first dumpster after being shot in St. Louis in January of last year. I just did a thing on Highway 270 for two of my sons the same day. So if you ain't never had a child not come home and wake up at 3 in the morning thinking about what you could have said to him, think about it. Before you make a decision, look at your little cousins, your nieces, your nephews. Take your family members and do inventory. Look at them. Look them dead in the face and wonder, will they be something one day? Will they sit where you sitting one day? Will they be able to talk about cure violence to make a difference? How can all other communities take something and we steady not change? I got 2 tattoos. That's what I live by. Live by these tattoos. I sleep with them. I go to bed with them. I hope y'all consider not having tattoos, looking at your grandkids, tell them you love them in the morning.
Thank you.
Jeanette Culpepper.
Did you have your guy sign, did he sign up, Mr. Robinson? And we just need it for accurate minutes. You could write it in, I just need it for accurate minutes.
Okay, just call my name. Okay, I don't have.
It's just to keep our minutes accurate, that's all. It just keeps our minutes, he has to type up all the minutes of the meeting. So by signing it, keeps us accurate.
All right. Good morning. We need to know who's talking. Sad day in St. Louis when you got to be before a panel asking for $8 million to help to reduce violence. I lost my son 28 years ago. Ms. Watkins lost 2 sons.
Pull the microphone up.
And we've been out here on the battlefield for 28 years and ain't got a dime. And we have did a lot of work. We used to take the children up to the Department of Correction. They stopped that program. We used to take the children, I used to go over there to the juvenile and speak to kids. It's time for us to get some antibiotic up in here and some chemo and stop dealing with them what you call them things? Tylenol and Advil. It's time for some real deal up here in St. Louis. But I know why they don't give a cure. Because 90% of those names are African Americans in St. Louis. I got candlelight service after candlelight service, 28 years of them. The first one was in front of City Hall with Vince Shaman. We're asking you all not to ignore the cries. It's nothing like a voice in the wilderness, and these are voices out here. These are families that are asking you for simply $8 million, anything to bring about a change. This Saturday, I'm having a forum, Knowledge is the Key, where I will have the juvenile judge to come and speak to the parents to keep their children out of the system. We can't, it's too late once they're in the system. And perpetrators can't be. And I know I have sons in the system, and I really shouldn't give a care, but I do. And they encourage me to do what I'm doing, to bring about a change. Anything that you can do to see that this program cure. And you all know what the word cure means, that 4 letters, C-U-R-E, means that you're going to have to do something to get to the bottom of the disease. And as I was saying, aspirin don't do it, but I have 3 sisters, 2 died with cancer, and the other one survived. Chemo killed that cell. You're going to have to do something more than what we're doing. Ms. Watkins, anything you want, ma'am? Because I get emotion. I try not to talk. I get off strip. I'm not going to be long. All I want to say is,
I'm sorry, can you just state your name real quick,
yes,
just
I'm
for the
sorry.
minutes, please?
My name is Elizabeth Watkins. I lost 2 sons, one in 1990 and one in 1991. I'm sorry. We need cure violence because if you don't do something now, we won't have children in the next 5 or 6 years walking the streets or going to school or going to college. You'll be going to the cemetery to put flowers on their graves or walking the streets still trying to get people to understand and realize something has to be done. If you have not lost a loved one through violence, then you have not walked in my shoes. And until you walk in someone's shoes, you don't know how they feel. People give you condolences and all, but once they leave you, they don't think about you anymore. Years ago, when Jeanette and I and other mothers, along with clergy, walked the streets in snow, rain, and ice, we even carried a casket down Page Boulevard. Where were you then? You waited until it got so bad, and now you don't still want to do anything to stop this. But we needed you back then, but it didn't matter to you because you had not lost a loved one. So, cure violence, if it can stop the killing and it can curb the killing, that my grandkids and great-grandchildren have something to look forward to, then you really don't understand. Thank you. I'm just going to
Thank
end
you.
on this note. I think I got a half a second I can count. That you please do not ignore the cry anymore. That you put St. Louis on the map. You know, we just got a soccer team, and I'm happy. I'm happy about the Blues. I'm happy about the Cardinals. I'm happy about all that. But I would like to see that you put St. Louis on the map on this cure violence. As I say, get a little chemo up in here. Thank you.
And the last speaker that's on my list is Pastor Loretta Rice. That's going to speak on behalf of the clergy.
Good afternoon, good morning. My name is Reverend Gerard Barnes. My wife pastors a church in St. Louis. I also serve as Midwest Regional Director for Faith in Action, the Live Free, which is our urban strategies arm, which we have also, as Faith in Action, we actually reign as the largest faith-based entity around urban strategies in the country. And I just want to say that these types of projects have been extremely successful in cities across the country and have proven to help policemen to, with the proper data done correctly, go into communities and not hunt our people, but actually be able to target issues that are really functional, which actually save lives across the board. Because as long as we don't have ways to dissect the issue and people can, and policemen are going into our communities hunting, then bad things happen to us in big ways. So that's a very important piece. So the data properly dissected does work. I also want to say in terms of money, they haven't done a cost of, there's a cost of people dying in this city and a cost of saving lives of $8 million over the next 3 years. But I think there hasn't been a cost of peace done in this city yet, and it's possible to do it, where there is a cost of death for everyone that dies. So there's the idea of what's the moral crisis and the financial crisis. The moral crisis, of course, is the 150 people or so that have already died this year. The financial crisis is that I promise you that if you, based on data across the country, it costs approximately $1.1 million to a county every time someone is killed. So based on the data that I've already heard today, that's approximately $151 million that the county has invested. What I mean by that is in terms of police hours, in terms of prosecution, in terms of what the coroner does and what have you, and even when someone is shot and they don't die, it's approximately $500,000. So the cost of saving lives is much cheaper than the cost of people actually dying, both morally and in terms of finances. Also, I'd like to say that there are cities that various iterations of this project that I know of have worked. For instance, in Richmond, California, there's an iteration along with some other processes that worked, and it's been an amazing change in the city since 2010, and here we are 9 years later with a 50% cut drop in what has happened. So I'm saying that these types of projects have not only been successful, but super successful when the community is involved, and it gives policemen an opportunity to not go into our communities with a blind eye, but we can focus on the people that are most likely to shoot and most likely to be shot, and those tend to be the same people. And when we can find that group and make that happen, it's not going to happen just by any policing action. It's got to happen by people that are closest to the pain and people that have the most at stake, and that's going to be the people that are in this room who have already spoken today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, there was one other person, Darren Seals, that I had on my list. If Darren from Sankofa.
How y'all doing? My name is Darren Seals. I'm from Sankofa Unity Center. Let me start off in saying this. If you all is supposed to be guiding our city to greatness, we failing. We failing so much where how you have a man have 2 kids and get gunned down. Got another mother say she lost 2 kids. I've been shot 13 times. A head shot that came out the top of my head. I'm a convicted felon. I've been in the streets my whole life. My father worked at McDonnell Douglas, and my mother was an operator since she was 15. I never had to go to the streets, but my neighborhood made me go to the streets, because there's no help in these neighborhoods. But if a bridge was to fall down, you all fix that bridge. How do you fix this bridge to that heart? You can't. It's a hill you can't never climb. A mother called me the other night at 3 o'clock in the morning and told me, I wish he would have listened. I'm thinking he's in jail. Another kid that I was trying to mentor, he's dead. When do it stop? Ain't y'all tired of seeing our black babies slaughtered all over the ground, chalked up on the ground? Let's take over here, John, in your neighborhood. How many babies over there that's dead and gone? What about the next doctor? What about the next John? They out there, but they getting gunned down. What are resources at? You know, we've been going through this. I've been going through this for a long time. And the first time I heard you all trying to stop the violence, I was part of it. Wishing you would try to stop it. Now, all the guys that's with me, we don't get paid a dime. When I say a dime, we've been going hard for 2 years, 24/8, 8 days a week. I felt like crying when the brother said he lost both his child. Did it affect any of y'all? I want to ask this question. Anyone up here on this panel, you all lost a child? So it's different, you lost a child?
Yes, sir.
So if someone came and said, this might work, what we got to lose? Some more babies, or let's see if we can make it happen. Back to the point they say that they might give jobs. Is it that some folks don't want it because it's guys with felonies that might want to get out of the game and get a job? But I bet you wake up when that guy at your backyard or coming through that garage door with that mask on, I guarantee you be voting for it. I don't know too much about it, but the more I research about it, and I talk to guys in different states, and we ain't talking about no aldermen and all these police. I talk to the head criminals in Chicago. It works. That's what they tell me, but what we got to lose? We've been going over this for how many years, you all?
The pure violence part, just the last year or two, but we've had violence for a long time, I understand.
Last time I thought about it was probably about 1986. 250 friends that's dead. I wish I could march all their mothers up in her. This is what I see through my eyes every night. I see I got a 3-year-old that might not make it because the city of St. Louis is failing her. It hurts, and I tell you, I was part of the problem. Now I'm part of the construction. And I ask you all, open your heart. That's all, just open your heart to see if you're ready to sit at that front row. Have you told them what you go through every night?
I'll give my testimony in a minute.
Right.
But
What about
we're on the same page.
What about the birthdays,
1,000.
Christmas? Come on, y'all. St. Louis done tried everything in their gutter. I'm gonna say it. They tried everything in their power to stop me, and you failed, and I failed. So now I'm trying to come back and show if today, see, you all gonna go home, and I said in front of the whole room, I might not make it till tomorrow. From the work I do, I'm out at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. How do you come together as a team? I thought this was what this was supposed to be. I used to go out of town, used to rush to go to the store and get a St. Louis hat. I'm ashamed of my city. But I cry every night, and I'm gonna tell you that I've been shot all them times, not shed not one tear. But I can tell you this much, it hurts that the city will not open a heart to save a life. We ain't talking about, this goes on every day. Every day, every night. But let me just say this and I'm gonna sit down. If it was time for election, and if it was up to us right here to give your vote, to say, would you help me save my child? Would you do it? Yeah, you do it. I'm gonna say this. It's a couple of aldermen. I see the work y'all do. I ride with you. Miss Boyd over there in Warner Park is violent a little down in our neighborhood. It's getting worse, ain't it? It's getting worse because over there's no resources. But if this cure violence, what if it just might work? But it will work if all y'all put your heads together and make it happen.
Yes.
So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. So, you know, again, I understand the enthusiasm. I also know certain members of the committee have to leave. I can tell you based off of my little polling of the committee, I think that it's going to pass today and we're going to take a vote, unless we're here waiting for applause and stuff to end, and we run out of time. So we're going to take a vote today, provided we have the time to take the vote.
Okay.
So, and I believe we have the votes, so I would just ask
Thank you,
for a
Mr.
little
Chairman.
cooperation.
Hey, everybody hold it down for 1 second. So, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That completes my list of people. I do have the amendment, and then I know you have some other speakers in there.
So, do we want to speak? Would you guys like to hear the amendments first, or would you want to talk first? Whatever. I'm good with.
I'd say do the amendments first.
Okay,
So we can.
I'm fine with that? Okay. So, yes, please do your amendments.
Once. Thank you.
John, do you want to chair the amendments? That's fine. So John's going to chair the amendments, so he's up and coming, so I got a lot of trust in John, so.
Okay.
Does every member have a copy of the amendment?
Not yet.
Yeah, you'll have an opportunity, but we have to amend the bill, and to the chairman's note, if we run out of time, he may not even take a vote today, so I want to make sure to get this in real quick, so after that, they're going to bring people up in the order that you signed up. I believe it. I think that's what you're doing, correct?
As long as we have time. Actually, John's chairing the meeting now, so I'm...
I don't, that is the fiscal note on this.
No. I like this chair.
But I don't.
Go ahead, Mr. President, with amendment number 1.
Amendment number 1 is, it reads as this: to amend said bill, page 3, line 4, beginning at the words amount of, strike out $8 million from the city's unreserved general fund balance for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020 to the Fund 1010, Department 610, account 565-9803 for expenses related to professional services for the Violence Prevention Alternative Program, Cure Violence, and insert the following words and figures: $5 million for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2020 to Fund 1116, Department 700, account 5659000 for expenses related to professional services for Violence Prevention Alternative Program, Cure Violence, as outlined in Exhibit A, and to be administered by resolution of the St. Louis Board of Aldermen with approval of the Public Safety Committee and overseen by the Health Department.
Thank you, Mr. President. Can I get a motion to accept amendment number 1? Is there a second?
Second.
So we're taking money away from the Justice Center? We're taking money away from the Justice Center.
Mr. Clerk, is a roll call in order?
It is. You may have discussion, though.
It's been moved and accepted to accept amendment number 1. Is there any discussion on the amendment before us?
Yeah, just for background, amendment number 1 is based on my discussions with the budget director to ID $5 million that's in this current budget that we can allocate to this fund. The department that we're allocating it to is the health department. So we would move these funds to an account that's been created for these funds, and they'll be held in the health department, and the health department will be the data collection agent for Cure Violence and the agent that would pay out to any of the other partners that we would work with on Cure Violence. It would also be administered through resolution of the Board of Aldermen and the Public Safety Committee. That way we get regular updates, so the Public Safety Committee would get regular updates, and the Public Safety Committee would have some influence on those end contractors. So I think it's a good amendment. It gets us where we need today, and then we have 3 years to find another $1 million.
Thank you, Mr. President. Questions from members of the committee? Alderman Honoritz.
Are we going in seniority or?
Oh, excuse me. Alderwoman Howard.
I see that, we've found some funding. How long will this fund the program for?
Well, this would take us through 2 years, and then we would still want to add another $1 million across 3 years so that we'd have the full 3 years. We're $1 million short of our 3-year goal with the money that's been moved by ENA already.
And this would implement this program I'm sorry.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
Alderwoman. What was the question again?
The program would be implemented throughout the city?
Yes, they would, the Cure Violence has done a field study ranking the various different neighborhoods and stuff, so they will work with the members of the Board of Aldermen, the Public Safety Director, right, the Health Department to identify the prime sites throughout the city to set up, right? And that's why I think it's really important to keep the Public Safety Committee engaged with the process, right? You all know as well as I do how much information you get coming back from your neighborhoods and the difference it can make within your community. So you will have some say-so into that, and you'll be working in conjunction with the teams to establish those sites.
Because I guess the meeting yesterday, I didn't see you at, but they were talking about just selected sites, not citywide. So I'm a little bit confused. Will it be citywide, or are we going to identify certain sites?
They're going to identify, you know, high crime sites, right, where they can have the biggest impact within a radius, right? And that will be done based on the interactions with the Public Safety Committee, the Health Department, and the knowledge that Cure Violence has of how to have the greatest impact, and also the Public Safety Director. So those sites are going to be in various locations around the city.
Will those sites be static? Because I guess what my thing is if we identify specific sites, it's sort of like hotspot policing.
No, this is not.
Does it run?
This is not hotspot policing.
No, but I'm saying, when you identify specific sites and you cure it there, does it run at other places?
No, it does not, because like hotspot policing, using that model, you're essentially just putting a lot of police officers and resources into one place to kind of flush it out and to try to tamp down crime, but you're still on the back end of it. What this does is you get on the front end of it, so you're engaging with the actual people who are most likely to go out and commit these crimes. In some way, they've been linked to and connected to a group or a group of individuals or them themselves, right? They've been involved in something, and they. Since we're engaging with them, we can have an opportunity to cure them. The difference is we're addressing that person directly, right, and changing their behavior, opposed to putting police officers and everything in place and hoping that that person somehow will do better. And the data shows that they won't unless there's some direct engagement.
Okay, one more question. How does this address juvenile crime? Does it address juvenile crime at all?
Oh, absolutely.
I haven't heard anything about that. That's,
Absolutely.
I think that sometimes we need to think about how crime starts at the family level early on. When we talk about raising children, many times it starts as examples, as we saw yesterday in the presentation, that, children will go the way they're raised.
Yeah,
and many times it's often before they're 5 years old, those impressions are made.
Yeah.
So how are we going to address that?
Well, and I'll answer for you, but I want to also bring up the Cure Violence folks to do it.
Okay.
But you kind of answered it, some of it you answered already. When Dr. Gary Slutkin created this program, he understood that it was about changing behaviors. And we pick up behaviors in various different ways. We pick up behaviors, most of the behaviors all of us exhibit today, we picked up within our household growing up, and we did it, we didn't consciously pick them up. We picked them up automatically, right? So the thing is, if we do not change the environment that these kids are in, we shouldn't hope for anything different, because the behaviors that they picked up as kids and the things that are social norms in that household, carrying a weapon, If somebody whistles at your boyfriend or girlfriend, you should and are expected to go shoot at them, right? If somebody says the wrong thing to you, you should, and it's okay, and by God, you better go shoot at them, right? Those things have to change at their core, and I'll let you talk.
Yeah, so I really echo what the president's saying, because if you don't change the environment and change, and you know how you change it? Like I posted something, hope is better seen than talked about. So if people can see somebody that they know has changed and they see them on the front lines, then that allows them to change better. We're talking about kids. Kids look up to certain individuals, and they need to see these individuals doing something differently. We start to change the culture. I've seen the culture of a neighborhood change when they look out there and they see who's doing the marching, who's doing the mediating. That inspires them, because they say, hey, okay, well, this is cool. It's not uncool to want to stop violence. And so when they start to see the people that you hire, and that's why the key to this thing, out of everything we're going, how much money, where it's going to be, what agency, the key, which I'll play a heavy role in, is to making sure we get the right people at the table that's going to do the work to provide that assistance to the people in the neighborhood.
What about engaging those families that may not have been victims or may not have been impacted? We won't be working with those families at all?
That haven't been impacted? I mean, I'm not sure I understand.
I guess what I'm saying is a preventative measure, it seems like you would work with people that may live in high crime rate neighborhoods, but maybe the kids are young and they haven't participated in crime yet.
Yeah, so when we do our training, we have a database that they input, and so obviously we're looking to work with the highest risk. But that doesn't mean that our staff are not trained to how to deal with at-risk and kids, and that's why we partner with people. See, like, the one thing I like about Cure Violence is that we don't try to be all over the place. We like to master what we're good at, but we can't do this alone. So if there is a young person that we see, we understand that they could be the next violent person, so we're not turning our back because a person hasn't committed stuff. But here's the thing, we just try to stay in our lane, and then we have connections. So if there's a fire that breaks out, the firemen come to put out the fire. They don't spend their time wondering where the slumlord at or the electric. There has to be somebody else that comes in and deal with the electric. There has to be somebody else that comes and deals with the slumlord. So we stay in our lane, and that's why we've been successful, because we don't try to be all over the place, but we know we need partners. We're not saying we can do this on our own. We're saying let us come to the table and plug into other resources, and then if a juvenile that needs help, we will send them to the right direction.
Specifically, you do not deal with juveniles.
Alderwoman Howard.
No, that's not correct. And we deal with juveniles that are violent. We have some high-risk juveniles as young as 14 that are shooting in certain cities, that they're the ones carrying the guns.
Alderwoman Howard, we are currently discussing and debating amendment number 1 that's on the table, not exactly Cure Violence. I just want to make sure we stick to what's before us currently on the table. Do you have any questions in regards to amendment number 1 in Exhibit A?
No.
All right.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Alderman Ornowitz, do you have any questions in regards to amendment number 1, Exhibit A?
This time, I'm pretty good.
Thank you. Alderwoman Hubbard?
No questions.
Alderwoman Boyd? Alderwoman Clark Hubbard?
No question.
Seeing no questions, Mr. Clerk, the motion was made and moved. Can we get a roll call to accept and approve amendment number 1?
Mr. Chairman, I want to make an adjustment on the printed copy of the bill that you all have because of the number of co-sponsors that are on it. The line numbers are different than the bill that I had, an earlier version. So amendment number 1 is page 2, line 20. So just make sure that I'd like to just amend that amendment to be page 2, line 20.
It was corrected, Mr. President.
It was corrected. Okay, all right.
You got a good clerk here.
There you go, yeah, on top of it.
Mr. Clerk, call the roll.
Alderman Boyd? Alderman Orner? Amendment 1.
Okay.
Alderman Boyd? Alderman Ornowitz?
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard?
Aye.
Alderwoman Howard?
Aye.
Alderman Muhammad?
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd?
Aye.
Alderwoman Clark Hubbard.
Aye.
Chairman Vaccaro. President Reed. Alderman Boyd. 8 aye votes.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Now on to, Mr. President, you also want to introduce Amendment Number 2.
Yeah, Amendment Number 2 for Board Bill 105 reads like this. Amendment Number 2, starting on page 1, line 3, strike out the word $8 million and insert the word $5 million.
Can I get a motion to accept Amendment Number 2?
I make a motion to accept Amendment Number 2 to Board Bill 105.
It's been moved and second, call for previous roll. Seeing no objection, can we get a motion? Mr. President, it's already passed.
It's already passed. That would make it 8 aye votes.
105. Now before us, Board Bill Number 105 as amended.
Yeah, I would just, again, really appreciate your support on Board Bill 105 as amended. I know that there are other speakers here who want to speak, and I don't know how much time you all have before your next hearing.
So I have a question. Even though we'll let all the speakers that want to speak, speak, is there any opposition to us going ahead and voting? Again,
For
my
the
fear
bill.
is to lose the quorum. I certainly want to hear from anybody and everybody that wants to speak, and we'll give you as much time as you want. But
Before
unless
some of
there's
the members
objection
have-
to it, it's
I
certainly...
think, Mr. Chairman, I think that's a good idea so that you don't, before some of the members have to leave for
Other obligations.
For other meetings, I would
So-
like to
That's up to John.
take
He's
up
chairing the
the
meeting.
board. Mr. Chairman, I would like to take up the Board Bill 105 as amended to just assure that we've gotten through the votes before any members have to leave today.
Yes, sir, Mr. President. Is there a motion to vote out Board Bill 105 as amended?
I make a motion, we vote out 105 as amended.
Second.
Previous roll.
Previous roll.
It's been moved and second and called for previous
With
roll.
a due pass recommendation.
With the due pass recommendation.
So unanimously across the board,
Oh, man.
it passed.
Let's give everybody...
John, who's the acting chairman, will call up speakers, and
Okay, so-
everybody's welcome to
Yeah,
come
I'm
up and speak
asking
now.
people not to leave. They're gonna go through the speakers now. But the reason the chairman had to do that, because there were some members who had previous obligations, and we had to make sure that the most important thing was getting it passed today. So they did it. I appreciate it. Thank you all. Thank you all.
And it passed unanimously, and that's really good. That's a good sign, because it's still got to pass by the whole floor, but it's a good sign.
Now, this is the public commentary part of today's committee hearing. We will go in order as people signed in list. First up is Susie Chasnoff.
Hi, I just want to thank everybody for considering cure violence. It's a real opportunity to rectify centuries of wrongdoing and give people an opportunity to have the interventions and the services that they need. I wanted to speak to the importance of housing in the health department, since this is a different approach to solving crime, the problem of crime, because it is a health-based approach. I think it needs to be housed in the health department. It's time that we take a transformative shift into how we view these things. I think in order for Cure Violence to succeed, it's going to need full funding. It's going to need a multi-year commitment, which this board bill is calling for. It needs to be administered by the health department that's already set up, knows neighborhoods, knows how to go into the neighborhood strategically and how to work with people there. I think it's important to have a fully transparent, data-driven reports. I think it's important to have a community advisory committee to maintain insight and oversight. The health department understands the community-based
Hold on, Ms. Susie.
programs.
Please make sure there's order in a committee hearing. We want to respect the person that is presenting. Please remain quiet. If you have to talk, please exit the chambers or either your left or right side of the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Funding will build capacity to meet real public safety demands. The health department has a bottom-up approach, a community-based approach, and it understands violence as a health issue. And for these reasons, I really encourage the placement of Cure Violence in the health department. Thank you.
Thank you. Reverend Gerard Gray.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am the associate pastor of the Greater Fairfax Missionary Baptist Church and the political advisor for the St. Louis Metropolitan Clergy Coalition. I'm thankful that this committee has voted unanimously on Cure Violence. I stand here in support of Cure Violence, but I want to, and I'm sure the committee understands, Cure Violence is not the only solution. I know we spent a lot of time talking about Cure Violence. We've allocated, or at least this committee has suggested allocation of funds for Cure Violence. But please do not think that Cure Violence is the only answer to the violence that our community has to deal with on a daily basis. I'm hoping that this committee will also look at other avenues, other opportunities, other resources in the community. Alderwoman Howard made a very good point. How are we going to begin to work with that 17 and below group? Not just in intervention, President Reed, although we need that, but in prevention. And as the question was asked, who the partners are going to be, I'm glad that you chose the health department, because we do not want the usual suspects
Right now.
getting their hands on money that political figures continue to give them for political favors. And so the health department is important. But we understand that the mayor still has the last word, because the health department has to answer to her too.
We have it coming back to this committee.
So we're glad to hear that. We want accountability. We want transparency. And whoever the other service providers are going to be, we want to know who they are. We want you to check out their track record. Have they been effective? Have they been efficient? Do they have reliable and substantial statistics and not just a lot of bravado and marketing? This problem didn't just happen, but 22 children got our attention. But we still have scores of black people killed in this city, but 22 children got our attention. And so we're just asking, Mr. Chair, we're asking, Brother President, that you continue to make sure that we're able to monitor the process and that there is a review period. Because at the end of the year, we should be able to come back and see some stats. If you say it works, we want to know it works. But at the same time, as I take my seat, we want to make sure that we also look at and examine other organizations like Sankofa, after-school programs within the school. And I know that you don't have a whole lot to do with the schools with resources, but we need to look at that too, and creating safe spaces, utilizing other entities, using other partners as well. I don't want anybody to leave here thinking that we've done everything that we could do by simply supporting Cure Violence, because if we do that, Brother President, then we're going to set ourselves up to fail. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. President?
Reverend Gray, you're right, which is part of why, Cure Violence being that nucleus that ties in various different nonprofits and organizations, and when they come in contact with a person like Marcus was talking to, the other one from the 14th, they know to connect them to the right resource, right? So right now, we really do not have that feeder system to connect people with the need to the actual resource that we're funding out there, right? And we're going to be working with, Darren Seals from Sankofa, organizations like that absolutely are part of this whole solution. The doctor spoke to it earlier when he said that when they're treating a patient, they put everything in there to assure that that patient can get well. So we're putting everything in. We're anteing up everything. Cure Violence is another layer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Reverend Cleo Willis. And also, under the rules of the Board of Aldermen and parliamentary procedure, each speaker is only entitled to 5 minutes unless allotted by the committee. So we will be timing you at 5 minutes. At that 5 minutes, you will be asked to sit down respectfully.
I'd like to know why you established that rule once I approach.
Because I know for clergy, 5 minutes become 10 minutes.
All right. Young Ricky Allen, 7 years old, was in his bed asleep. His 13-year-old brother was being chased by a dude with a .30-30 up on the floor, up on the 5th floor. He shot at his 13-year-old brother. He missed, shot and killed young 7-year-old Ricky Allen. Natasha Watson, 6-year-old, on Clara and Etzel was jumping rope. And there was a chase. And from that chase, there was a shooting. From that shooting, young Natasha Watson was shot and killed. These were the first 2 marches ever took place against drug gangs and violence after there was a long debate. If it's a duck, quack like a duck, look like a duck. I'm sorry, if it look like a duck, quack like a duck, it's a duck. That was the big debate in terms of wannabes. Do we really and truly have a gang problem here in the city of St. Louis? No. This was years and years and years ago. The media can look it up. First demonstration. Saying this. Drugs is the major problem. Once you cross that line in a deal, nobody can intervene. Recess is over. You cross that line, I'm going to kill your mama and your child. That's what we're witnessing today. It was set up by design. If we decide to truly end the violence, then we will put those jobs out there. I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna sit down. We marched at night, Reverend Robert Franklin Sr. and Frank Washington, along with the, I can't think of the name of that group. And we marched around Horseshoe on Clara in St. Louis, by Clara in St. Louis. Hardcore drug area. And we marched that night, came back the next day, and we talked to the young brothers. And the young brother said, I'll never forget it. I don't want to sell drugs. I have a daughter. I don't want my daughter grow up and run into somebody like me. But I'm not going to put my drug selling deals down for a hamburger job. So if we focus on stabilizing the community with jobs, I think we'll make a major improvement. The last thing, we have to put monitors in the ambulance. The ambulances must consist of monitors. The momentum is not growing by accident. There's another interest here. It's real, it's serious, and it's about organs. They put drugs in the community to create death for the utilization and the sales of our organs. And it's taking places in the ambulance, more so than any place. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
William Wayne. William Wayne.
First of all, I'd like to say good afternoon to everyone, and that I love you all. The first thing I'd like to say is that he who was the servant, meaning the politicians, are the greater among the people. But he who was the chief servant is the servant of all. And I feel, my mother was the type of alderman when she was living.
Tell everybody who your mother was.
Joanne Wayne.
Yeah.
And she fought hard because of the diversity among the races. It's still happening today. I mean, we got elected officials that are not being invited to summits on violence. And we got things that are taking place that we do, but credit is being taken away from us. And the North and the West look like third world countries. Only thing we got is running water and gas. They turn everything down. They refusing to let blacks buy the land that we can do something with. I feel that this bill was a good thing, but I mean, we need police in the substations watching the cameras, which I don't know why that isn't happening. And we need the church and the coalitions to come together. I don't care whether they're in wheelchairs or what, and we need to walk these streets at night. We need to let these young people know that everybody's hollering about peace, but they don't realize, how are you going to have peace before you have unity? How are you going to have unity before you have love? I remember reading a chapter out the Bible that Dr. Martin Luther King parable to Jesus. He said, if you want to be powerful, that's wonderful. If you want to be great, that's wonderful. But you must be first in love. And there's no love among the people. Blacks, whites, Hispanics, even our president of the United States. I mean, where's the love? America wouldn't put her for this. It wasn't. And you leaders have to take hold and take control. Because you are the servants. You are the greater among the people. And we got to bring back stuff like Operation Brightside for the summertime. All those old things that gave the youth something to do. Open night basketball. I know it was a scandal. But we got to get to these young people. I mean, some people say they're wrote off. I don't believe that. Because I tell the little bitty kids that were on the playground, I tell them to put their hands in the air. Don't they be no square. Say love, unity, and peace. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wayne. If I pronounce this wrong, it's because it is hard for me to win the penmanship. Rudy or Randy W? Well, I'm assuming it's not Rudy.
It's Randy. My name Randy Williams, and I've been living in St. Louis all my life. And when I heard about the cure of the violence, I like that. You know, I like what President Reed is doing, and Brother Muhammad and everybody. I really agree with that because, you know, I'm 47 years old, and I've lived on that side of life before. I'm an ex-gang member. You know, I've been in the streets, but I don't live like that no more, And I would like to help my community much as I can. The last town hall meeting, they put me out, and because I got kind of loud, because it really plays part to my heart, because everybody I went to school with, all my friends are dead. I have 4 sons that's named after 4 of my good friends. I got dead people named on my hand. On both of my hands, I had them for years. I mean, this is just like regular life for people that live that type of way. But once you learn a different way and your thinking change, like they was talking about your behavior, it can be done, because you have people in the city that are scared to take their trash out. It's people like my grandmother, Miss O'Neill, off of Shreve. She used to be the president of the area commander of 63115. I remember on Shreve they had won the 9th and 87 a national night out. I was there. I was there on Shreve when they won national night out. I mean, it's one of the most dangerous places. It looks nice, but it's one of the most dangerous places in the city. That was my cousin. That was my uncle's son. The lady, I didn't meet him, but that's my uncle's son. Look, Robert. My name Randy Williams. I have lost a lot of people. I know a lot of people lost their children, and curative violence, if that's going to help with outreach programs, man, St. Louis needs it. It's a war zone out there. It ain't just about the drugs. You got people that's doing all this violence. Some of those people don't even do drugs. Some of the people that's out there doing the violence, they don't even do drugs, And I just would like to be a part of anything positive to help St. Louis be a better place, where children don't have to be scared to be on the playground, and it's a time limit that we got to be at the park, we got to leave, we got to do this, we got to do that, because people scared, people scared. My grandma been staying in her house for 60 years, and she looks out her window. She used to look out her window and know everybody on the whole street. There's no more block captains or nothing like that. People are scared to have a meeting. They don't want to even have meetings no more. They still have meetings at the Wesley House. When I was young, I used to be a part of the Scared Straight program. They come get the kids up, and we take you down here, and and some of that stuff worked. You know what I'm saying? And It does work. I've been in all the worst places in St. Louis. Worst places. But it can be changed. Because if the young people that I know, when they see me, they be like, hey, there go Randy. But Randy going to work. Randy doing something positive. We know what Randy used to do, but Randy Randy don't do drugs. Randy don't drink. Randy don't smoke weed. Randy don't do none of that stuff. So if they see a positive person like me, we know he used to be in the game, but that's past stuff. You know what I'm saying? Myself, I know a lot of the youngsters in the streets, they be hanging out there in the streets, but when they see me, they act like I'm the police when I walk up. They straighten up, damn, there go Randy, man. And they don't even want to walk, they don't even want to do nothing bad around me. And that's me, I used to be a real gang member in the city. Yeah. That's me in 1992.
A minute and 30 seconds.
Okay, that was me in 1992 on the corner of 20th and Old Bear with the guy Dietrich Smith in the wheelchair and the lady from the Post. When they said it was 2 rolling 60s on the corner of 20th and Old Bear. That's me with my back turned. That's me and my friend. That's me. But it can be done, man. I really like curative violence. That's all I got.
Anise, I ain't going to attempt to say the last name. It starts with a B. Anise B.
Good morning. My name is Inez Bordeaux. I'm an organizer with the Close the Workhouse campaign. I'm also the manager of community collaborations at Arch City Defenders. First, I want to take a moment for thank this committee for passing the bill that President Lewis Reed put up. This is exactly what we at Close the Workhouse, at Arch City Defenders, at Action have been talking about when we've been asking our elected officials to reimagine what public safety looks like. because it is very clear to us that the arrest and incarcerate model in St. Louis does not work. If it worked, it would have worked already. We have hundreds of people locked up in jails, and yet our streets aren't any safer. So we're asking everyone, not just our elected officials, but the entire city, to reimagine what public safety looks like and what are the things that actually make us safe. Poverty breeds crime, and crime breeds violence. Before I was the manager of community collaborations at Arch City Defenders, way before I was an organizer with the Close the Workhouse campaign, I was a nurse. I am a nurse. And so I'm going to hit you with a medical analogy that some other people in the room have mentioned today. If you tell me that you have a fever, I know that I can give you Tylenol, and that Tylenol is going to break that fever for 4 hours. And then after 4 hours, the fever is going to come back. Why is the fever going to come back? Because the fever is not just a fever. The fever is caused by an infection. And if you do not cure the infection, if you do not get the right antibiotics to treat the problem, the fever is just going to keep coming back. And the fever in this instance is all of the things that are plaguing our city. The 20 children that we've lost since the summer started, the gun violence, the poverty, the crime. These are all fevers. These are symptoms of the problem that we're dealing with. The true infection in our city is poverty. All you have to do is go down the street and around the corner for a few minutes and drive through the north side or the west side, and you can see what racist policies and practices have done to our city, the poverty that it's produced. When people are hopeless, when people do not have something to look forward to, when they can't see a future for themselves, this is what you get. This is exactly what you get. So reimagining public safety means, how do we cure the infection? How do we cure the poverty in this city? There are 5 means to do that: through job training programs, solid education programs, fully funding our public schools, through affordable housing, through affordable health care, and last but not least, resources. So while I applaud this committee, and I think I can speak for everyone at CTW, at Action, at Arch City Defenders, that we are proud of the work that was done here today in getting this measure passed out of this committee so it could later be presented to the whole board. But cure violence is only a very small part of what we have to do. We need to divest from the arrest and incarcerate model. That means taking money away from the things that do not make us safer and putting those resources into the things that actually do make us safer. So while I'm proud of this, and I'm so happy, and I'm so glad I don't have to go back to work and say anything terrible about President Reed and any of the members on this committee, I'm so happy about that. But let's not rest on our laurels. Let's not rest in this singular victory. It is time to get to work. So if you have questions about how we can do that, I am interested in meeting with you, talking to you. Please feel free to reach out to Close the Workhouse or Arch City Defenders. It's time to get to work. Let's do it.
Thank you. Shiraz Goldman. Shiraz.
That went up. Greetings, everybody. My name is Shiraz Gorman. I'm the founder and executive director of Sibling Support Network, where I run an organization dedicated to people who have lost either blood-related or fictive kin siblings to a violent crime. The reason why I started Sibling Support Network is because in August 14th of 2013, my youngest brother John, at the age of 27 years old, lost his life here in the city of St. Louis, defending a young woman who had been getting abused for 8 years by her ex-partner. And I'll reel it back for you. My oldest brother, Javon Mitchell, home only 6 weeks from Kuwait, was killed in 1993. 2001, right before I was headed off to go to college, my cousin Guillermo Robinson was murdered. 2 days ago, the young man whom my brother raised while he was alive, his stepson, was just murdered 2 days ago. While I am happy and I'm pleased that you all have passed the Cure Violence bill, I am concerned that the amount of money went down from $8 million to $5 million. Because if we are putting our financial resources to what we believe is important as a city, that is also sending a signal to our city on what is important. It is quite shameful that we have to put black grief and grieving on display to give somebody, anybody, some semblance of our humanity. For that to be considered, we have to cry and mourn. We literally have to wait for people to die in order for us to act. And I do not care how much you dress up a city in hopes of attracting some sort of financial gain from corporations. If the heart is not well, the body is not well. I don't care how well you dress it up. I carry my brother's ID in my pocket and in my wallet. Before my brother died, and this was actually going to be his surprise to me that he went back to college. My brother did not get that opportunity. And as I sit back and I look at the systems, because I'm a native of St. Louis, I'm from College Hill, I'm from 63106, and I grew up in the Cochran, 63107. I have literally watched the priorities of this city betray the people of this city. I have watched the very racialized conversations in this city. Everything from our mayoral election with dog whistle racism to the inaction of our public safety, because we know statistically that diversity training is not an effective measure. It's actually a waste of money. Stanford and Princeton has done studies on this. I had the pleasure of meeting Dr. Lori Punch from the T over 1.5 years ago, because guess what? When we talk about gun violence, it's just not about deaths. Families are impacted in other ways because we have people who are surviving injury as well. People who are surviving gunshot wounds, stab wounds, things that are resulting from violent crimes. And also, I'll reel it back. I watched my mother become a trauma nurse inside of our home after my next to oldest brother was shot. There were no resources for my mother to take care of my brother's wounds, and he was shot in a drive-by standing on the corner with friends. So if we are not going to truly look at the cost and the impact on families, I ask you all on this board and in the city hall to really examine your hearts. And why does black pain, why does black loss of life not demand action?
Thank you. I want to allow President Reed, before he exits, to answer and respond to your question in regards into the decrease from 8 million to 5 million. I just want him to respond to your question.
Yeah, what was it, last week, we transferred $1.5 million from a fund in the mayor's office to this program. Earlier this year, when we passed the budget, Alderwoman Davis on Ways and Means Committee put $500,000 in, so there's $2 million sitting over in a line item that will be added to this. So our next order of business is getting that $2 million moved over to the health department, just like this $5 million is. That brings us to $7 million. And then we have the next 3 years to come up with the last $1 million. So that's why we made it $5 million, because that amount was readily identifiable. And quite frankly, it takes any argument out of the hands of anybody who wants to come up and say, we cannot afford it because the money's sitting there and we can do it. So I'm happy that we were able to get that 5, plus we have the 2. We're going to move that 2, that brings us to 7, and then we just have to find $1 million across the next 3 years. And it's really important to have 3 years of funding in place, because we don't want to do a pilot program. We just can't afford to play with this stuff anymore. And I think $8 million is quite modest considering what it can do.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I also want to say this is not the only investment that the Board of Aldermen is making in violence prevention. Every year, it was a proposition that was initiated by President Reed and former 18th Ward Alderman Terry Kennedy, called the Proposition S Dollars. It's the Youth Crime Prevention Fund, in which we fund different organizations and entities each year dealing with crime deterrence programs in the city of St. Louis. So this is not the first measure set in place to discuss violence prevention programs. We do this every year and have been doing so for the last several years, where the Board of Aldermen, specifically the Public Safety Committee, meets. This committee here actually funds different organizations. I just want to make sure that people are well aware of that. And you were the last speaker. You were the last speaker. So that is it.
There's a list there too.
Are you Miss Clara? Hey, I didn't have a check mark by your name. I apologize. I stand corrected. Miss Clara, come on up.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
I was just sitting in my chair thinking, you guys, I was thinking they passed the bill, so why am I here? I can leave now.
We want to hear from the public.
Yes, ma'am. And I asked my brother, who was sitting next to me, and he said, you should still read the letter. So if it's okay with you guys, I'm going to go ahead and read it. This is a letter that I wrote a few days ago. I believe it may have been about 3 or 4 days ago that I wrote it. The letter reads, Dear Mayor, city officials, government officials, and to our beloved public. That would be you guys. That would be us. Okay. It is with deep sorrow that I am writing this letter. This morning, while I was pulling into my driveway, I heard Alderman Reed and radio host DJ speaking about the gun violence that plagues our city. My initial reaction was to cut the radio off and get out of the car. But as I began to hear more, I could not help but be more engaged. I was listening to them talk about Cure Violence Global and how the program was very successful in making a huge impact all over. Upon listening even more, I realized in that moment how much a weight had been lifted off my heart. I'd been concerned and praying for our city, for our nation. Because of the gun violence, I've had so much pain in my heart. And to hear the Alderman and DJ speak about this program was making such a huge difference, gave me so much hope. And I could literally, guys, breathe a little bit better. Literally, guys. I did. My heart was lighter, and I would sigh with somewhat of a smile, thinking to myself, this is amazing. And how can I help? The Alderman went on to share the new bills that were being introduced by Congressman Clay, and I became even more hopeful. As someone who cares very deeply about our children, our families, our communities, our nation, I would like to see this bill passed. Our city is working diligently, lovingly, responsibly to make our city a better place to live. And I believe if we have other tools that would make it even better, I believe that we should use those tools. Respectfully, Clara Norris. Thanks for having me, everybody.
Thank you. Also, I want to allow, not allow, but I would like to request that Alderwoman Davis speak briefly. She was the one that started this process to bring the funds necessary to fund care violence. I just want her to speak briefly on what that looked like and what she expects from this process. After such, we will adjourn today's committee hearing.
Thank you, Presiding Chair. I simply want to say a few things that are very clear, and it should be heard across this region, not just for the city of St. Louis, because we have problems everywhere. I talked yesterday about North County. I talked about East St. Louis, because it's not just a city of St. Louis problem. And if we don't address it in this entire region, it's not going to really be beneficial to us. But Cure Violence has a propensity to make sure that a program is operating in a designated area with people who live and come from that neighborhood and know the people in that neighborhood. See, that's very different from hiring somebody from out of town or you never met, they never even been on a block in that neighborhood. It's a difference, and that's why it works. So we have got to make sure that those areas that are selected, that we give them all the support we can give them. We need to make sure that this program is in a position to be successful. Data collection for this is imperative. It's imperative. And having the health department in the lead role for me is critical. Because of all the other resources that will come to this, it's a natural fit for the health department. It's a natural fit. It's a fit of understanding. I saw a number of people from BJH here. They already have a trauma program that works with the victim and the family when somebody comes their shot. A lot of people don't know that. They put their money where their mouth is, okay? Other health facilities are doing the same thing. So we have a lot of good partners out here. They're all willing to come to the table because they see something, first of all, that has a success record. It is proven not just in one community, but in over 79 communities that have all kinds of issues. You know, we think we bad and we got a lot of issues. Oh, no, no, no. If it works in New York, it can work anywhere. And so I've done my homework on it. This Board of Aldermen needs to stand behind it. Every alderman needs to be behind it, because you know what? Shame on us if we can't provide the resources for our town. Shame on us if we let politics get in the middle of it. Shame on us if we let personalities get in the way. Some of us are working together in here that don't particularly care for each other. And we know that. But at the end of the day, it's more important to save lives and create a quality of life that's so much better. We've got to make it better. So I thank you, sir, for allowing me to say a few words. And what I want to say to you, public, stay on us. Put your foot on our necks. Push us. Embarrass us. Make us do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Today's Public Safety Committee is adjourned.
We got to take your president over there to that Ferris wheel.